Ambassador Kethvar of the Zephyrian Collective had witnessed first contact with 17 different species during his 3-century career. None had prepared him for the humans. The Harmony's Edge, humanity's first interstellar vessel, drifted into Zephyrian space with all the grace of a wounded asteroid. Its hull bore scorch marks from what appeared to be kinetic weaponry, primitive by galactic standards, yet somehow unsettling. When the airlock hissed open, Kethvar expected the usual. Frightened prey species desperately seeking protection, or perhaps arrogant herbivores demanding immediate galactic citizenship. Instead, a human named Captain Rodriguez stepped through, her eyes immediately scanning every corner of the diplomatic chamber. Not in wonder or fear, but with the calculated assessment of a hunter mapping territory. "Ambassador," she said, extending a hand in their peculiar greeting ritual. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us." Kethvar's translator implant struggled with the human's vocal patterns. Too many subtle intonations, layers of meaning beneath the surface words. When their hands touched, he felt the human's grip. Precise pressure, neither submissive nor aggressive, but somehow evaluative. "The pleasure is mine, Captain Rodriguez. We are curious about your species' intentions in our sector." The human smiled, revealing those disturbing pointed canines. "Our intentions are simple, Ambassador. We want to learn about our new neighbors, understand how things work out here among the stars." It sounded innocent enough, but something in the human's steady gaze made Kethvar's prey instincts twitch. In 3 centuries of diplomacy, he had never felt like he was being measured. "Perhaps," the human continued, "you could tell us about galactic politics? Who are the major powers? What are the rules of engagement between species?" Rules of engagement. Not rules of diplomacy or trade protocols, but engagement. As if the human was already planning for conflict. Over the following hours, Captain Rodriguez asked questions that seemed random but formed a disturbing pattern. Military capabilities of various species, resource distribution, alliance structures and their weak points, supply line vulnerabilities, trade routes and patrol schedules. Each query wrapped in diplomatic courtesy, but underneath lay the methodical intelligence gathering of a predator studying its environment. When Kethvar inquired about Earth's military capabilities, the human laughed, a sound that somehow conveyed both humor and warning. "We're new to the galactic scene, Ambassador. Just trying to figure out where we fit in." She paused, studying him with those predator's eyes. "Though I should mention, we've had some experience with conflict resolution back home." The ambassador noticed how the human never fidgeted, never looked away, never showed the nervous energy typical of newly contacted species. Instead, Rodriguez sat with the perfect stillness of a predator conserving energy, watching everything, recording every detail. "Your ship," Kethvar ventured. "It appears to have seen combat? Asteroid mining can be dangerous," Rodriguez replied smoothly. "Lots of debris, occasional equipment malfunctions. We've learned to be prepared for unexpected challenges." But those weren't mining scars on the hull, and both beings knew it. The damage patterns were too precise, too strategic. These were weapon impacts from actual combat. As the meeting concluded, Captain Rodriguez stood with fluid grace. "Ambassador, this has been most enlightening. I hope this is the beginning of a long and mutually beneficial relationship between our species." "Indeed," Kethvar replied, though something cold had settled in his stomach. "Perhaps next time you could bring some of your trade goods? We're always interested in new technologies." "Oh, we will," Rodriguez said, that predator smile returning. "Next time we'll bring much more than trade goods." Later, after the humans departed, Kethvar reviewed the meeting recordings with growing unease. Every question, every gesture, every seemingly casual observation had been gathering intelligence. The humans hadn't come seeking protection or guidance. They had come hunting. But hunting what? That was the question that kept him awake through the station's night cycle. He drafted his first report to the Collective Council. Species designation, human. Classification, unknown, but recommend immediate upgrade to priority surveillance status. Note, First contact protocols may be inadequate for this species. They do not think like prey. Recommend extreme caution in future interactions. As his report transmitted across the galaxy, Kethvar stared out at the stars and felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries: the ancient fear of being hunted. He had no idea that Captain Rodriguez was, at that very moment, compiling her own report for Earth Command. Galaxy appears to be populated primarily by prey species with limited military thinking. Defense networks are outdated, patrol patterns predictable, interspecies cooperation minimal. Recommend immediate but cautious expansion. These people have been at peace so long, they've forgotten what war looks like. We haven't. The captain paused in her typing, looking out at the alien stars surrounding their ship. Her tactical officer had already begun long-range scans of nearby systems, mapping defensive positions and fleet movements. The communications officer was recording and analyzing every transmission they intercepted. Humanity had spent centuries perfecting the art of war among themselves. Now they had an entire galaxy of species who had forgotten how to fight properly. Rodriguez smiled as she completed her report. First contact successful. Beginning Phase 2. Comprehensive intelligence gathering. Estimated timeline for complete galactic assessment: 18 months. The hunt begins. 3 months after first contact, the galaxy learned its first lesson about human nature. They never traveled alone. The Merchant Guild of Antares thought they were dealing with a simple trade dispute when the human vessel Relentless arrived at their commercial hub. Captain Elena Vasquez requested permission to dock, claiming her cargo holds contained rare earth minerals for trade evaluation. Guild Administrator Hetnox, a crystalline being whose species had dominated galactic commerce for millennia, agreed to the meeting. After all, newly contacted species were always eager to trade their primitive goods for advanced technology. Easy profit. The Relentless docked at Bay 94, and Captain Vasquez emerged with a small diplomatic entourage. Hetnox noted with amusement that the humans seemed nervous, constantly looking around, whispering to each other, checking their primitive communication devices. "Welcome to Antares Hub," Hetnox intoned through his translation matrix. "We understand you wish to establish trade relations?" "That's correct," Vasquez replied. "We're hoping to exchange some rare earth metals for, well, whatever you think might be valuable to our people." Hetnox's crystalline structure hummed with pleasure. Another naive species ready to trade irreplaceable resources for mass-produced trinkets. Perhaps we could examine these metals first? But as the negotiations proceeded, Hetnox began to notice oddities. The humans' nervousness seemed oddly coordinated. Their glances weren't random. They were systematically cataloging every security camera, every exit, every armed guard's position and equipment. One human spent the entire meeting studying the chamber's structural supports. Another kept track of the timing of guard rotations. When Captain Vasquez's communication device chimed, she glanced at it and smiled. "Gentlemen, I think it's time we discussed more serious business." "Serious business?" Hetnox's confusion translated as a harmonic discord in his voice. "The protection racket you've been running on the Kepler colonies," Vasquez said calmly. "The forced labor operations in the Vega system. The systematic execution of Deltan refugees who complained about working conditions." Hetnox's crystalline form shifted to deep red, a sign of extreme alarm. "I have no idea what you're—" "Administrator Hetnox," another voice interrupted. A new human had entered the chamber. A massive male with scars across his face and the distinctive bearing of a career soldier. "My name is Colonel Mitchell Santos. While Captain Vasquez has been keeping you busy, my teams have been conducting what we call a comprehensive audit of your operations." "Teams," Hetnox managed, his voice creating tiny fractures in the chamber's crystal walls. Santos smiled, revealing those disturbing human canines. 27 teams, actually, spread across 14 guild facilities. "We've been gathering evidence for the past 6 weeks. 6 weeks. While Hetnox had been congratulating himself on another easy mark, the humans had been systematically infiltrating his entire operation. Every guard had been observed and catalogued. Every security protocol had been tested and bypassed. Every guild facility had been mapped down to the individual storage compartments. You see, Captain Vasquez continued, humans have this thing about slavery and genocide. We tend to take it personally. So we're going to shut down your little empire. You can't. Hetnox's voice cracked with harmonic distortion, sending painful resonances through the room. The guild has allies, protection agreements. The hegemony will. The hegemony? Santos chuckled. You mean the military alliance that's been covering for your crimes? Yeah, about that. The chamber's communication system crackled to life with multiple voices. All human. All reporting simultaneously from across the galaxy. Alpha Team to Santos. Hegemony Command is secure. Admiral Gethlock is in custody. Bravo Team reporting. Their main fleet is disabled. No casualties on our side. Charlie Team here. We've seized all financial records. This goes deeper than we thought. Delta Team confirming. Guild operations on 17 worlds have been neutralized. Hetnox's crystalline structure began to fracture with stress, hairline cracks spreading across his surface. Impossible. You're a newly contacted species. You don't have the numbers, the technology. The ships. Vasquez smiled. Oh, you mean the ones that have been lurking at the edge of your systems for the past 2 months? The stealth cruisers your sensors can't detect? Those ships. Santos activated a holographic display showing the positions of 18 human vessels, all previously undetected, surrounding Antares' hub. The display also showed human operatives already inside guild facilities across 3 star systems. You made one critical error, Vasquez explained. You assumed we were like the other species you've encountered. Peaceful, trusting, individual. But humans, Santos added. We're pack hunters. We don't just take down our prey. We study it, surround it, cut off its escape routes, and coordinate our attack with lethal precision. Every human in this room has been in constant communication with 17 other teams across the galaxy. The holographic display expanded to show the full scope of the operation. Guild installations across multiple star systems, all simultaneously under human control. Supply lines severed. Communication networks compromised. Escape routes blocked. Pack hunting isn't just about numbers, Vasquez continued. It's about coordination, patience, and understanding your prey better than it understands itself. We've been watching your operations for months, learning your patterns, identifying your weaknesses. Hetnox's structure had gone completely transparent with terror, the crystalline equivalent of total psychological collapse. How many of you are there? Enough, Santos replied simply. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to transfer all guild assets to a humanitarian fund we're establishing. You're going to release every forced laborer, every slave, every prisoner in your network. And you're going to do it in the next 4 hours. And if we refuse? Santos's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes made Hetnox wish his species was capable of trembling. Administrator, Santos said quietly, in the past 6 weeks, we've identified every guild operation, every ally, every hidden asset you have. We know where your queen nodes reproduce. We know how to synthesize the frequencies that shatter crystalline molecular structures. We know exactly how to erase your entire species from existence. He leaned closer. The question isn't whether you'll comply. The question is whether you'll do it peacefully, or whether we'll have to demonstrate why the galaxy is about to learn a new definition of apex predator. Hetnox complied within 3 hours. Across the galaxy, intelligence agencies updated their files with a chilling new assessment. Humans don't hunt as individuals. They hunt as a coordinated pack across interstellar distances, with precision that defied everything the galaxy thought it knew about military organization. The Hegemony Council emergency session was the largest gathering of galactic powers in recorded history. Representatives from 47 species packed the chamber, their various forms of communication creating a cacophony of clicks, hums, thought projections, and harmonic frequencies. Fleet Admiral ZXTH Arc of the Mantid Supremacy called for order with a series of sharp chittering sounds. We are here to address the human problem. Problem? Ambassador Yildana of the Ethereal Collective's voice resonated directly in the minds of those present. They eliminated the guild's criminal network, freed millions of slaves. How is this a problem? Because, growled General Throck of the Ursine Confederation, his massive form bristling with agitation. They did it in 6 weeks. 6 weeks to infiltrate, analyze, and simultaneously strike targets across half the galaxy. My species has been trying to locate guild black sites for 3 centuries. Supreme Counselor Veltar, whose aquatic federation controlled the ocean worlds, rippled with concern. Our intelligence suggests they had been monitoring galactic communications for years before first contact. They knew about us long before we knew about them. Impossible, chittered Admiral ZXHR, his compound eyes reflecting prismatic anxiety. Our deep space sensors would have detected any monitoring stations. Would they? The voice belonged to Dr. Elena Reeves, the human representative who had been invited to address the council. She entered the chamber with the same measured gait that had become disturbingly familiar to galactic diplomats. Never hurried, never hesitant, like a predator that knew exactly where it was going. She activated a holographic display showing Earth's solar system. Admiral, your sensors are designed to detect the energy signatures of known technologies. But what if someone was using entirely different methods? The display expanded to show detection ranges extending far beyond what the galaxy considered possible with primitive technology. While you were looking for quantum transmitters and hyperspace beacons, we were using gravitational wave detectors, passive radio telescopes, and good old-fashioned optical observation. The chamber erupted in alarm calls, angry growls, and mental projections of outrage. Several smaller species began to emit distress pheromones, filling the air with the scent of fear. Dr. Reeves waited for the noise to subside with infinite patience. You're missing the point. This isn't about espionage, it's about hunting methodology. You admit you were hunting us? General Throck's massive form bristled with aggression, his claws extending unconsciously. Not hunting you specifically, Dr. Reeves corrected, her tone remaining conversational. But yes, we were hunting, because that's what we do. We identify prey, we study it, we track it, and we wait for the right moment to strike. Prey? Ambassador Yildana's mental voice carried a chill that made several telepathic species recoil. You consider us prey? Dr. Reeves's expression remained neutral, but her eyes held the same calculating assessment that had unnerved Ambassador Kethvar months earlier. Not you personally, but the guild? The slave traders? The war criminals hiding in your midst? Yes, we consider them prey. She manipulated the holographic display to show a timeline spanning decades. Do you know what persistence hunting is? It's an ancient human technique. We don't chase our prey until it collapses from exhaustion. That's inefficient. Instead, we track it. We follow its movements. We learn its patterns, its habits, its weaknesses. The display showed tracking patterns across multiple star systems, data points accumulated over years of patient observation. We spent 3 years just watching the guild, learning their trade routes, their communication protocols, their hierarchy. We identified every single person in their organization, mapped their entire network, documented every crime, and then you struck all at once. Fleet Admiral ZXHR finished, his compound eyes reflecting growing understanding and fear. Exactly. But here's what you need to understand. The guild operation wasn't the hunt. It was just the first kill. The chamber fell silent except for the nervous clicking of chitinous appendages and the soft rippling of aquatic forms. You see, Dr. Reeves continued, humans don't just hunt individual prey. We hunt entire ecosystems. We identify every predator, every competitor, every threat to the stability of our hunting grounds. She gestured to the assembled representatives with casual authority. Right now, as we speak, there are human observation teams studying every major military installation, every government facility, every strategic resource depot in the galaxy. General Throck rose to his full 3-meter height, his voice a threatening rumble. Are you threatening us? No, General. I'm explaining our nature. Dr. Reeves's voice carried the same patient tone a teacher might use with a slow student. Humans are persistence hunters on a civilizational scale. We don't make temporary alliances or fight limited wars. When we identify a threat to our pack, we track it until we understand it completely, and then we eliminate it permanently. Supreme Counselor Veltar's aquatic form turned a pale blue, a sign of extreme distress. How long? How long have you been watching us? Your Federation? About 18 months. We've identified 17 critical vulnerabilities in your defense network, mapped the genetic structure of your leadership caste, and developed 3 separate contingency plans for neutralizing your military capabilities without harming your civilian population. The counselor's color shifted to absolute transparency, aquatic equivalent of shock. But, Dr. Reeves added, and for the first time her expression softened slightly, we've also identified you as potential allies. Your treatment of refugee populations, your environmental protection laws, your military restraint in territorial disputes. These factors place you in our protected pack category. Protected pack? Ambassador Yildana queried, her mental voice trembling. Humans evolved in pack structures, but we also formed alliances with other species. Dogs, horses, even some birds. Species that served the pack's interests received our protection. Species that threatened the pack faced extinction. Fleet Admiral ZXD-Chark's chittering had become rapid and agitated. You're categorizing entire civilizations like hunting targets. Like I said, Admiral, persistence hunting on a civilizational scale. We've spent the past 2 years categorizing every major power in the galaxy. Threats, allies, prey, neutral parties. Each category receives different treatment. She manipulated the display to show a galactic map with different colored zones. Green zones marked protected allies. Yellow zones indicated neutral territories. Red zones. General Throck's voice had become quieter, more dangerous. Active threats to galactic stability. The hegemony's military expansion program, for instance. The Void Cult's genocide campaigns. The corporate state's slave breeding programs. Those are classified operations. Admiral ZXD-Chark's compound eyes were reflecting light in rapid patterns. Extreme agitation. Not from us, they're not. Admiral, let me ask you something. In the past 6 months, how many of your classified operations have gone wrong? Equipment failures, intelligence leaks, supply line disruptions. The Admiral's chittering stopped entirely. Dr. Reeves smiled with predatory satisfaction. We've been sabotaging your war machine for months. Not enough to cripple you immediately, that would destabilize the region. Just enough to slow your expansion, give your neighbors time to prepare defenses, maintain the balance of power while we complete our assessment. The chamber erupted in chaos as representatives realized the implications. The humans hadn't just been watching, they had been actively manipulating galactic events for months. Ladies, gentlemen, and assorted sentients, Dr. Reeves said, her voice cutting through the noise. You need to understand something fundamental about humans. We don't just win wars, we prevent them by eliminating threats before they become critical. But what do you want? Supreme Counselor Veltar's voice carried desperation. We want what every apex predator wants. A stable hunting ground where our pack can thrive. The Void Cult's fortress world of Nihil Prime had been considered impregnable for over 8 centuries. Built inside a hollowed-out planet, defended by gravity wells that could crush approaching ships, surrounded by a minefield of dark matter bombs. It was the perfect refuge for the galaxy's most feared genocidal cult. High Executioner Crimnash stood in his obsidian throne room, reviewing holographic reports of the cult's latest purification campaign against the peaceful Deltan colonies. 3 billion souls extinguished in the name of cosmic entropy. His elongated skull pulsed with bioluminescent satisfaction as he contemplated the statistics. It had been their most successful operation in decades. That's when the lights went out. Not just the lights, everything. Life support, gravity generators, defensive systems, communications. The fortress world's entire infrastructure went dark simultaneously across all 17 levels of the planetary complex. Emergency power flickered on. casting eerie red shadows across the throne room's obsidian walls. Crimnash's telepathic servants began screaming in terror as they detected multiple breaches in the fortress's outer hull. Not explosions, but surgical incisions that bypassed every defensive system. Report! Crimnash's voice echoed through the chamber, his bioluminescent patterns shifting to angry crimson. Unknown, Lord Executioner, gasped his chief lieutenant, tentacles writhing in panic. All systems failed simultaneously. Our scanners show no attacking ships, no energy weapons, no gravitational disturbances. The lieutenant's words were cut off as a section of the throne room's wall simply vanished, not blown apart or melted. It was there one moment, gone the next, leaving a perfect circular opening that revealed the complex's internal structure beyond. Through the opening stepped a human female wearing some sort of adaptive armor that seemed to bend light around it. Her movements were fluid, predatory, like a big cat stalking through familiar territory. Captain Maria Santos, her nameplate visible on the shifting armor. "High Executioner Crimnash," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber despite the lack of acoustic enhancement. "You're under arrest for crimes against sentient life." Crimnash laughed, the sound like breaking glass mixed with dying screams. "Foolish human. You walk alone into the heart of our power. My guards will tear you apart. My defenses will." "Your guards are gone," Captain Santos interrupted, consulting a device on her wrist. "All 47,000 of them. Neutralized simultaneously 12 minutes ago." "Impossible." Santos activated a holographic projector, showing the fortress's internal structure in three-dimensional detail. Red dots marked the locations of unconscious or dead void cultists throughout the facility. Every guard post, every command center, every hidden chamber. My species has this saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. But there's a third option. If you want to go completely undetected while systematically dismantling an entire military organization, send humans. The display showed entry points throughout the fortress, dozens of them, all created with surgical precision through supposedly impenetrable barriers. "We've been inside your fortress for 6 hours. Every guard post, every weapons depot, every command center. All neutralized without triggering a single alarm." Crimnash's elongated skull began to pulse with bioluminescent patterns of rage, casting twisted shadows on the walls. "Even if you've defeated my guards, you cannot escape. This world has defenses that would destroy entire fleets." "Had defenses," Santos corrected, her tone remaining conversational. Past tense. "The gravity well generators were sabotaged 3 hours ago. The dark matter mines were disarmed and repurposed. Your quantum tunneling gates have been reprogrammed to transport your prisoners to safety rather than to execution chambers." She gestured to the walls around them with casual authority. "This entire fortress is now under human control. Every system, every weapon, every escape route." "But how?" Crimnash's lieutenant whispered, his tentacles curling in defensive postures. "We had scanners, motion detectors, psionic barriers, quantum fluctuation monitors, all designed to detect known forms of intrusion," Santos explained patiently. "Energy weapons, matter transporters, telepathic infiltration, dimensional shifts. But humans use adaptive camouflage, kinetic tools, and psychological manipulation. We don't fight your defenses, we become invisible to them." The holographic display shifted to show the exterior of Nihil Prime. What Crimnash had thought was empty space now revealed the shapes of 18 human ships, their stealth systems deactivated to show their true positions surrounding the planet. "The Predator, Hunter, Stalker, and 15 more ships of what we call the Silent Fleet," Santos said. "They've been here for 3 weeks, studying your fortress, mapping every weakness, planning this operation down to the second." Crimnash's bioluminescent patterns shifted to ultraviolet, a sign of absolute terror in his species. 3 weeks? Our deep space sensors never detected. "Your sensors work fine," Santos interrupted, "but they're calibrated to detect ships trying to hide from you. Human stealth technology doesn't hide from your sensors, it makes your sensors ignore us." There's a difference. She manipulated the display to show a tactical overview spanning multiple star systems. Every major void cult installation has been simultaneously neutralized. Your breeding worlds, your weapon foundries, your training academies, your secret research facilities. All of them are now under human control. The entire cult? Crimnash could barely speak, his voice reduced to a whisper. Every last installation. Every leader, every soldier, every collaborator. 732 facilities across 41 star systems. It's over. But Santos wasn't finished. The display expanded further, showing locations across the entire galaxy. But here's what you really need to understand, Executioner. The Void Cult wasn't our primary target. It was a demonstration. Demonstration. For the rest of the galaxy. You see, there's been some debate among the galactic powers about human military capabilities. Some think we're just unusually coordinated for a new species. Others suspect we might be more dangerous than we appear. Santos smiled with those distinctly human predator teeth. We decided to settle the debate by showing them what human military doctrine really looks like when we stop holding back. The holographic display now showed a real-time galactic map with hundreds of red dots pulsing like a heartbeat. Every major military installation, every government facility, every strategic resource depot belonging to the 17 species classified as active threats to galactic stability. Crimnash stared at the display in growing horror, his bioluminescent patterns cycling through every color of terror his species could express. You've infiltrated everyone? Not infiltrated. Surrounded. Every military base shown on this map is currently within range of human weapons. Every government building has human operatives already inside. Every strategic resource is under our direct observation. She zoomed in on specific locations. The hegemony's main fleet? There are currently 47 human operatives aboard their flagship, and we've planted charges in the quantum cores of every ship in their battle group. Another zoom showed corporate facilities. The corporate state's slave processing centers? We've had teams inside for months, gathering evidence and preparing liberation operations. Another zoom revealed hive-like structures. The mantid supremacy's hive worlds? We've identified the genetic markers for their queen castes and developed targeted biological agents that would make their reproduction impossible. Crimnash's lieutenant was hyperventilating, his respiratory systems overloading. You're talking about total galactic conquest? No, Santos replied calmly. We're talking about total galactic pacification. There's a difference. Conquest implies we want to rule you. Pacification means we want you to stop being a threat. Ambassador HFY Ariana of the Deltan Refugee Council stood in the observation deck of the human vessel sanctuary, watching her people's new homeworld take shape below. Where barren rock had existed just 6 months ago, green continents now spread across the planet's surface like a living canvas of hope. It's beautiful, she whispered, her empathic abilities picking up the complex emotional resonances from the world below. Hope, joy, gratitude, and something deeper. The feeling of being truly safe for the first time in generations. Captain Jennifer Walsh, the sanctuary's commanding officer, joined her at the viewport. Her presence radiated the same protective confidence that HFY Ariana had learned to associate with all humans, the quiet certainty of an apex predator that had claimed territory and would defend it to the death. The atmospheric processors are ahead of schedule, Walsh said, consulting a holographic display that showed terraforming progress in real time. Your people should be able to start colonizing the southern continent next month. The northern regions will be ready within the year. HFY Ariana turned to study the human's face, trying to understand the species that had not only saved her people from extinction but had literally brought them back from the dead. Captain, may I ask you something personal? Of course. Why did you do this? The cloning, the terraforming, the protection fleets, it must have cost your species enormous resources. The genetic reconstruction alone required technology we didn't know existed. And for what? We have nothing to offer in return. Captain Walsh was quiet for a moment, watching the terraforming machinery work on the planet below. Massive atmospheric processors stretched across entire continents, while orbital platforms seeded clouds with the precise chemical combinations needed to sustain Deltan physiology. Do you know what a pack bond is, Ambassador? I'm not familiar with the term. On Earth, my species formed partnerships with other species. Dogs, horses, cats, even some birds. We called it domestication, but it was really a mutual pack bond. They provided services, hunting, transportation, companionship, and we provided protection, food, shelter. She gestured toward the planet, where the first Deltan settlements were already taking shape in carefully planned communities. But the bond went deeper than simple exchange. Those species became part of our extended pack. When they were threatened, we defended them. When they suffered, we healed them. When they died out, we preserved them. LY Ariana's empathic senses detected something profound in the human's emotional resonance. A deep, protective instinct that felt almost maternal. And you see us as part of your pack? Not just you. Every species that chooses cooperation over conflict, creation over destruction. The Aquatic Federation, the Crystalline Communes, the Ethereal Collective, all of you are under our protection now. But protection from what? Captain Walsh's expression hardened, and LY Ariana felt the shift in her emotional resonance. From nurturing protector to lethal predator in an instant. From species like the Void Cult, the corporate states, the hegemony expansion fleets. From anyone who threatens the stability of our hunting grounds. Through the ship's communication system, a voice announced, "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from Earth Command. Priority Alpha." "Put it through to my ready room," Walsh replied. To LY Ariana, she said, "Would you like to observe? This might help you understand human pack dynamics." In the ready room, Admiral Rebecca Morrison's image appeared on the holographic projector. Behind her, LY Ariana could see what appeared to be a war room with multiple displays showing galactic maps, fleet positions, and tactical analyses that covered dozens of star systems. "Captain Walsh, report on the Deltan resettlement project." "Ahead of schedule, Admiral. The first 1,000,000 colonists will be relocated within 30 days. Genetic diversity parameters are optimal. We've successfully restored their pre-genocide population variety using samples from over 12,000 individuals. Excellent. Population health indicators. All within normal ranges. The psychological rehabilitation programs are showing remarkable success. Birth rates are already above replacement levels. The youngest generation shows no trauma markers from the genocide." Admiral Morrison nodded. Then her expression became more serious. "Captain, we've just received intelligence that the corporate states are planning a raid on the new Deltan colonies. They want to recapture what they consider valuable genetic material for their slave breeding programs." LY Ariana gasped, her empathic abilities immediately picking up the surge of protective rage from Captain Walsh. The corporate states had been one of the powers that had purchased Deltan prisoners from the Void Cult for genetic experimentation. "How many ships?" Captain Walsh asked, her voice calm but carrying an undertone that made LY Ariana's empathic senses recoil slightly. It was the mental resonance of a predator preparing to kill. "Initial estimates suggest a battle group of 30 vessels. Standard corporate states configuration. Heavy assault ships with boarding capabilities designed for prisoner capture rather than destruction." "Understood. Recommended response." Admiral Morrison smiled, the same predatory expression LY Ariana had learned to recognize in humans. "The corporate states need to learn what happens when someone threatens our pack. Implement Protocol 7. "Protocol 7? LY Ariana couldn't help but ask. Captain Walsh turned to her, and for a moment LY Ariana saw something in the human's eyes that made her understand why the galaxy was beginning to fear her species. "Ambassador, you're about to witness something that will help you understand why humans are called the final evolution of predators. We don't just defend our pack, we eliminate threats to our pack permanently." She activated the ship's battle systems. Around them, the sanctuary transformed from a peaceful colonization vessel into something far more menacing. Weapon ports opened along the hull, shield generators hummed to life with barely contained energy, and the ship's entire structure seemed to shimmer with defensive fields. "Captain," came a voice from the bridge, The silent fleet has just decloaked. 47 vessels in perfect attack formation. Through the viewports, HFY Ariana watched in awe as human ships seemed to materialize from empty space around the Deltan homeworld. Not just military vessels, but an entire fleet that had been invisible to all sensors. Destroyers, cruisers, and massive dreadnoughts that dwarfed anything she had ever seen. "Admiral," Captain Walsh reported. "Silent Fleet is in position. All vessels report ready status. Awaiting corporate state's arrival. They should be dropping out of hyperspace in 3 minutes," Admiral Morrison replied. "Captain, the corporate states have been warned repeatedly about their slave operations. They've ignored diplomatic protests, economic sanctions, and even limited military actions. Today, they learned that threatening our pack has permanent consequences." HFY Ariana watched the tactical displays as 30 corporate states' ships emerged from hyperspace at the system's edge. Immediately, they began moving toward the Deltan colonies, their weapons charging for what they clearly expected to be an easy raid against defenseless refugees. That's when the corporate states' fleet discovered they weren't alone. "This is Admiral Morrison of the Human Protection Fleet," came the transmission to the corporate states' vessels. "You are entering a protected system. Turn around immediately or face the consequences." The corporate states' response was predictable. "Human vessels, withdraw immediately. We have legitimate salvage claims on this system. Your interference is an act of war." "War?" Admiral Morrison's voice carried cold amusement. "Admiral Cothran, you seem to misunderstand the situation. This isn't a war. This is a culling." What happened next redefined HFY Ariana's understanding of human military capabilities. The corporate states' fleet never had a chance to fire a single shot. Human weapon systems that had been concealed throughout the star system activated simultaneously. Not just ship-based weapons, but orbital platforms disguised as asteroids, hidden weapon satellites, and what appeared to be weaponized terraforming equipment. The corporate states' vessels found themselves surrounded by weapons fire from directions they hadn't even known existed. Their shields collapsed within seconds, their hulls breached with surgical precision that disabled but didn't destroy. "This is impossible." Admiral Cothran's transmission was filled with panic. "Our intelligence reports said only 18 human ships were in this system." "Your intelligence was correct," Admiral Morrison replied with predatory satisfaction. 18 ships were visible. The other 47 were waiting for you to threaten our pack. Within 10 minutes, the entire corporate states fleet was disabled and boarded by human marines. Not a single corporate states crew member was killed. They were all taken prisoner for war crimes tribunals. HFY Ariana realized she was trembling. "You knew they were coming. You were ready for them." "We've been ready for them for months," Captain Walsh confirmed. "The moment we identified the corporate states as a threat to galactic stability, we began preparing for this inevitability." "But how did you know they would come here?" Walsh smiled, and HFY Ariana felt the complex mix of affection and lethal protection that seemed to define human pack bonds. "Because, Ambassador, we understand predators. And we know that predators always return to test the strength of competing pack territories. The corporate states couldn't resist the temptation to test ours.